Hi, this is Cam and Fam. We're going to show you how to install a backsplash in a kitchen. We have our granite countertop here right now. It's just butted up right up against the drywall at this point. But we're going to install some lovely tile. This is Satori. It's a marble mosaic. It's available at Lowe's. One of the other tools you'll need is a notched trowel like this. You can get this in a smaller size if you don't want it to be quite so big here, but we want these small V-shaped notches. So let's get to it. Cam
and Fam!
Now this is our finished countertop, so I don't want to mess this up. So to prevent it from getting scratched, or more importantly from getting like sticky mastic or things stuck onto it that could be hard to get off or that could never come off or leave stains, I like to use this clear plastic film that's sticky on the back. This is by a company called Surface Shields. It's this green plastic, it sticks and we just lay it down. I don't want it touching the wall, I want it near the wall because I don't want it to get stuck under the tile. That can be a mess to get rid of. But there we go, it works. So working around things like outlets and these kind of edges is the trickiest part about doing tile. And so I have to have two tools to make these cuts. I have to have a handheld grinder and a larger tile saw. So here's my next piece. It's got several cuts on it, and it's going to go right around this here. Now, as you're installing tile, you can either put the mastic, like I'm using this mastic here, pre-mixed mastic. It's called Type 1 tile adhesive, and you can put it straight on the wall, which is great if you have a nice big wall space. But for spaces like this, it's easier if you just butter up the brick or butter up the tile with it. So on little thin pieces like this, instead of trying to stripe the mastic across it, I'm just going to put a couple of chunks like this, and I'll just spread it, and I'll just press it in just the right amount. But I want lots of extra potential distance on it or thickness on it, so that so I can get it exactly the right spacing from the wall that I need. All right, here we go. Let's get this on here. I'm using 16th inch spacers. These spacers have, the plus sign on one side and just the straight on the other side. So you want to use spacers to make sure that everything stays, all your grout lines are evenly spaced here, but you don't have to put it in every spot, just enough to make sure that it's level everywhere. Just feeling to make sure that everywhere it's, and of course on this little thin piece, I put extra thick mastic on it, so it's sticking out a little further. All right, rest. Oop, that was exciting. I'm fine, I'm okay. Pro tip, before you start working around your outlets and stuff, you should find them in your breaker box and turn off the breaker. All right, okay. Now I'm gonna take be careful not to touch any of the metal wires inside, but gotta get the extra mastic out of here. Feel it again for being level. So this kind of tile that's got small pieces like this, that's meant for bathrooms and kitchens, it's glued. It has a fiberglass webbing glued onto the back of it to help it hold together, and it makes it really easy to keep it looking all uniform and nice like this. However, there are times where there's places you'll find where this 1/16 spacer doesn't fit between, like right here. It's a little too tight to fit right there. And so, but if you allow it to compress, sometimes it'll actually touch. So if there's ever any spaces like that, I just use a little piece of cardboard that I just tear off like that and just stuff it in there. So to measure for cuts, of course, it's really useful to have a good carpenter's pencil like this that you sharpen with just a razor blade or a utility knife. All right, so sometimes you can just hold it up and measure things. This is not going to work that way, obviously. I have to measure from somewhere. I can measure from here over this way, or I can measure from the wall. That would be not as effective. So I'm going to measure from here over and just make some notes on the tile. All right, so I need to know based on this one right here. See that little skinny piece? I need to know from the end of that where I'm going to make this cut. So let me measure from the bottom up first. I'm going to go up and cut right about 4 7/8 is where that the bottom of that goes to. Yep. So from the bottom up here, I'm going to measure 4 7/8 just to get kind of a barometer. It's going to be on the edge of this one right here, 4 7/8. So it's going to be right about there. And from here over, go over the edge of that box, and that's going to be about 3/4 plus. So there's 3/4 right there. Plus is the 16th. I don't like to say what would that be, like 13/16 or something like that. I just say 3/4 plus. Makes sense. So I got that marked there. You mark it also at the top of this towel right here. And actually, I can go all the way up to here now. Same thing. Mark it there. 3/4 plus. Okay. And then I can just kind of eyeball it here. I don't need to have a perfect line, but I can do that. I can kind of use my finger on the bottom of my pencil to get this edge kind of straight. This will be harder over here, but I can still kind of go like this. Or I take a straight edge of some kind, like this piece of cardboard. I can do that now to get a nice solid line. All the while I'm looking to make sure it's not too narrow here compared to there, make sure it looks like it's all pretty square. I'm gonna hold it up here and just see if that looks about right. Just eyeballing it. I think that looks like it'd be good. So, okay, now, so this is gonna be a little thin piece right here. And then this is I'm gonna mark an X here to show which part I'm gonna cut off. Because if I go outside to saw it, I might forget, okay, I forgot what I'm cutting here. I'm cutting out this box here, so I'm gonna put X's. All the things will be cut out. The top piece is a lot more narrow. I can eyeball that at 3/16 actually. An inch here. I'm just gonna eyeball it like this. That looks about right. I'm gonna lick my thumb and erase it here so I know I don't want to cut all the way through that towel right here. So I've got to cut out this piece right here to make the outside of this right there. And I'm just gonna hold it up one more time and make sure I didn't offset by the wrong tile. But yeah, that's the right idea. And then that'll fit right in there nicely. Okay, now as I think about this outside on the big tile saw, I can cut into here and I can cut into here easily. So that's, I can use the full tile saw for that. But for this, I'm gonna have to use a smaller handheld grinder to make that work. I'm gonna cut the top of it a little bit to get a smooth, straight edge. And then I'm gonna go on the bottom side to cut it all the way through. So I need to mark the same things on the bottom side of this tile as I do on the top. But after I cut, I'll cut this with the wet saw first, you'll see. And you'll see where the lines are specifically, and I can match them up. Okay, so the back is marked, the front is marked. Let's go make some cuts. So here's our large tile saw. It's a wet saw. Let's see there's water down here. I'll spray water on the blade to keep it cool. Okay, and over here is a grinder. It's got a new blade on it. I just happened to put it on this morning. This is a 4.5 inch diamond tipped masonry saw for it can be used wet and dry for stone and tiles. And I like to have a board. I like having a board to put under the tiles I cut it. It helps prevent breakage because it absorbs some of the vibrations. And also, if I happen to cut a little too far, I don't cut into the concrete here. I'll cut into a little wood, which is not a big deal. Okay, so I'm gonna lay this down here now. Of course, I gotta have my glasses, protective glasses on. I like to use, I left them inside. I like to use ear protection as well. I'll be back to grab those in a minute, and then we'll make the cut. I also like to use these heavy-duty rubber gloves. They're PVC because my hands get so dry if I'm getting tile pieces and this water with all of the tile fragments in it. it makes your hands just crazy dry. So it also gives us some protection from sharp edges and things as I'm making cuts. So we're gonna cut along this line first, right here. I'm not going to cut all the way through yet. I'm just going to give it a pretty good edge there on that. And then I'll bring it to the full saw up here. Okay, line this up. All the blades off. Okay, got that lined up there. Now with a piece this narrow right here that I'm cutting, a grinder might make it break off, but a wet saw like this with a good blade will be just fine. Finish the cut on the other side, because on the back side you can cut a little bit past this edge and we can get it, but you won't see it on the front, but on the back we'll cut a little past that line right there so that we can get a good corner. So here we go. Make sure that's still lined up there. That far past, this far past the line in order for the finger blade to get to the corner. There's no way to cut this now. With this towel saw, I would cut off everything along the way. We don't want that, so we have to notch it out, right? So now we go back to the grinder. Now, these rough corners here, that rough corner. Now we go back to this wet saw and we can just trim those off. All right, now to have the mastic stick really well, you want the back of it as dry as possible. So I usually wipe it on my pants a little bit or my shirt, but this is a big enough piece. I'm gonna just dab it with a paper towel, make sure the adhesive sticks well to it. I'll butter the back of this and then we'll stick it up. Now, I'm going to only butter it to about here on the back of this because we have a big wall space now there. I'd rather stick it on the wall space. It'll save time for me. So I'm going to kind of go to about this point here, and then I'll put it on the wall. All right, now we're gonna go straight across to that point. All right, here we go with this piece. Nice. Now you see we got to push in a little bit here, right? This is too far out. Slide that over a bit here. That's about good. Now we got to look at all of our lines and our tile depth, and we got to make sure everything looks as nice as possible. There's no such thing as perfect with tile. No such thing as perfect, but we're going to get it as close as we can. Over here, it's looking a little tight right there, so I'm going to try and get that spaced good. Yep, got it spaced in there. Always checking for depth. Make sure the depth is good everywhere. The surface is flush. One way to check for flushness on something like this, or even on floor tiles, is to take the edge of a tile that's straight and to put it up against it like this, and you can see, oh yeah, it looks great. See how nice and tight those are? On both sides of this outlet, you want it to be very, very flush because that plastic rim is going to be there. See how this looks funny right here? I'm going to try to fix that by lifting this one up. You raise me up. Put that in there. I'm trying not to make any sparks again. Next piece will be pretty easy. You just got to do one straight cut all the way down. And of course, on an inside corner like that, you have to decide ahead. One towel will go all the way to the edge, Over here, the tile on this side will bump up against the other tile there. And it doesn't really matter, because we're going to use some caulk. We're going to use tile caulk up the corner anyway, so it doesn't matter which side is there first. Now, a common problem in homes is that things are not always square, you know? So we have here, it's really pretty convenient, we have a full block of these tiles here, a full piece of the tiles. And then we have 3 more, and it's perfect. The next 3 lines up, I didn't have to do any cutting along here, it's perfect. But as we got into the corner, it got a little bit too narrow there, so I did have to take one line of tiles here, and I had to line it up on the tile saw to cut a slight diagonal, slight angle. Can you see how this is more narrow here than there? There's a full tile, and I had to go at an angle there. And so that's not a big problem. Now that mastic back there has been sitting for a while, so I put just a thin layer of light mastic on this tile to make sure it sticks. If that's a little bit dry, this will help with the stick so it doesn't fall off later on when it gets a little bit humid or something. So I'm gonna put this up there now. Let's see if it fits. And there's a gap there, that's fine. Again, it's okay to have up to like a 1/8 of an inch gap here, because the corners are gonna be caulked with or what they call it, flexible grout. I'm gonna put some flexible colored grout in that, so which is gonna be white, but anyway. Okay, so I just have to fix this so that it looks straight. So we want the grout line straight. So I'm gonna pull this down a little more if I can. Sometimes I have to use a little bit of it. This is a chisel, sometimes I use it to move things like that. Now that's better. Now on the inside corner, again, it doesn't matter doesn't matter which piece is in first, because the other piece will go up against it like that, and you have a clean edge. On outside, however, on the outside corner, you have to decide where the which side is more important to look nice, because on one side of it, on one side of the corner, you're going to see the edge of a tile like this, unless you cut it at a diagonal. So here's the tile with both sides done now. You can see how they meet real nicely there. And I like to look carefully and make sure that whole tile, half a tile. So I like to line them up like this. It's either a whole tile coming to the end, or it's a half tile that continues around the corner like that. So we got a good look there. So after you're done working for a day, it's very important that you clean these tools, because this stuff gets really nasty and impossible to scrape off. But even though it's a little dry, I've been working at it for about, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours today. So even though some of it's kind of dry, it'll still scrape off. I'll use some water on the most stubborn spots here. Just gotta scrape out each of these little grooves here to get them nice and clean. So it's worth taking a little time now so that you save these tools and can use them for years and years. All right, see how shiny and clean this is now? Yeah, nice, huh? You want to make sure the tile is nice and dry before you remove these spacers. This stuff seems to be nice and dry after about 8 hours, but I usually just like to wait overnight. Thanks for watching this video on how to install Backsplash. If you want to learn about grouting, we'll have another video about how to put the grout in. And please subscribe and like, and we'll see you in the next video.